Show presents
the Cyberpunk Lorecast.
Welcome to the Cyberpunk Lorecast, where style is just as important as substance. Welcome to the podcast where we explore the lore, news, and gameplay of the Cyberpunk games and other dystopian worlds. I'm your host, Robots. Hey there, Cyberpunks. Welcome back to the Cyberpunk Lorecast. I'm your host, as always, Robots, or Tom. And I am here with my co-host, Logan. Logan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm very excited for our episode today because, as you and I both know, and many of our listeners know, we just got the third Night City Wire just a few days ago. And this episode, we will be digging into the nitty-gritty, yummy details of Night City Wire and talking about our impressions and maybe some things that you may or may not have noticed. So buckle in. I don't know if seatbelts are a thing in 2077. Maybe you just have augments that keep you from flying through your car windshield. But get ready for this. We'll be doing this on video. So as always, we are streaming this live. It's Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And we are streaming this. I will be showing clips from the video on the stream so that you can see things that we are talking about. If you can't check out the live stream for this, you're listening to it and you would rather see the video version, it will be up on the Robots Radio YouTube channel. So you can look for the link for that in the show notes. And if you are only listening to the audio version, we will do our best to describe what it is we're looking at. But I highly recommend at some point going back and looking through the Night City Wire video again if you haven't, or if you need more information about what we're talking about. So Logan, why don't we just dive right in? First of all, general impressions. What were your general impressions of this as a whole? Not too much into any specifics.
This, like watching this over and over again, I started to get emotional because what they were talking about with the world and the buildings and just how they've kind of designed everything and the details that they put into it. Like last week, we talked about just the wanting to go and actually see just how immersive this world, how much ambient noise there would be around with people, and seeing this video and having them dive into that, man, I absolutely fell in love. I can't wait for this game. It's ridiculous, but this was a really cool Nightwire, and especially with some of the tie-ins that they had at the end for the community. Like I wasn't expecting that, and the whole PC rig contest that they're doing the finalists for, that was really cool. I'm glad that they're recognizing that in the video so that people know to, like, hey, there's an illustration one going on right now. They are going to showcase people that do stuff with it. So I love it. It's so cool. I was really happy that we got this, and I'm looking. Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice kind of thing. I hope they do that with like the cosplay and stuff, because there's been some awesome cosplay lately too.
Very true. Very true.
How about you?
Yeah, I think this was generally pretty good. It was a little shorter than I think I expected it to be, but kind of quick and to the point. I do enjoy the community stuff. I did highlight a number of the entries into that case building design contest. I have a video where I picked out like 10 of my favorites that weren't any of these finalists. So if you want to see what some of the other contestants were doing, you can go look that up on the Robots Radio YouTube channel. But yeah, I think overall I was pretty satisfied with it. I especially liked the details, being able to see a little bit more into each of the gangs, and especially more about the city itself, I think was probably the biggest highlight for me. But we're going to get into that a little bit. We have specific parts of the video to highlight as we go through this, and we're just going to kind of go through in order of the things that happened in the video and show them to you guys. So here, let's talk about, first of all, we have Richard Knight, who shows up in this video, and I'm going to put this up on screen for you. So here we go. Oh, did it pull in the right? There we go. There's Richard Knight for you. Richard Knight, as you guys know, if you've listened to the episode of the podcast, is the namesake of the city. And here we have some footage of him with what looks like a little bit of augments, a cyberpunky kind of suit. And this brought Logan and I to have a conversation before the show about, is he supposed to be alive still, or is this footage from something that happened in the 90s? Because he dies in 1998. So is this pre-cyberpunk world, but still kind of cyberpunk world with some augments? Is this a representation of him that's kind of in the world? Is this from a documentary? We don't really know. What do you think? I think
you convinced me, honestly. Like, we had the discussion and I was wondering if maybe they had retconned the character for some story elements, but I'm going to be honest, man. I honestly think that you had nailed it. I think that the way that they presented the video was really good at trying to identify what Night City is. And one of the little, like, you know, interview questionnaires that they're all like, who is this mysterious guy who happened to be the founder of Night City? Like, I think you nailed it. I think they are pulling old video of him back from when he was alive, or even maybe this is just someone that we don't know, and Richard Knight is just in reference because this is the person asking the questions,
or a descendant.
I like that.
Maybe
that
it's
suit.
a descendant of.
Yeah, could be too.
I don't know that he had descendants. I can't remember back from the episode I did on him if he actually had any children. But yeah, I think we're going to get some sort of interactive or non-interactive, maybe even just a video of like the history of Night City at some point, where maybe he will be referenced and we'll see clips of him. That's my guess. So,
yeah, I think it would be really fun to have something like that, you know, especially just to kind of give a broad overscope of Night City for people that aren't initiated into the lore. If you're starting up the game and they're like, hey, here's here's all the top TV shows on Night City right now. And, oh, there's a retrospective on who Richard Knight is and just like what he did to make Night City as amazing as it is and why we should be grateful. It's like the founders of our great city kind of thing. But yeah, that'd be cool. Kind of have a good introduction to it.
Right. So next on my list are some things that I noticed in the videos over this next portion where they were talking about Night City and some of the, you know, the dev conversation about it. They had a lot of these clips that kind of played multiple times. One of them here is this cityscape where you can see, and I'm going to talk about this in the next clip as well, this monorail being built. It looks like there's a monorail system that runs through the city, which is interesting. I wonder if some of our adventures will take place on actual moving monorail cars. That could be a thing. But then check this out right here in the center, the ads. I love the advertisements, and you can see more of these types of advertisements in the book, the Cyberpunk graphic book that talks about some of the history and stuff. They have these little advertisements all over it. If you're interested in picking one of those up, there's a link in the show notes you can use to go to the Amazon page and get it. Logan and I both have it. It's like $20 digital. And if you buy it through the link, then we get a little bit of a kickback for you guys using the link, which we appreciate. But then also this ad here. And I'm sorry. And on the website that they shared with us, the nightcity.love website. Have you seen that? Have you guys checked that out?
Yeah.
This is, if you haven't gone, type nightcity.love into your browser, go take a look at it. It is like Night City's website. And there's all sorts of cool stuff in there, including pop-ups that are like fake pop-ups from like a fake website, which is hilarious, and ads and things. Before I get too far off base here, this ad right here, and this one says, hate your meat. And it has a picture of somebody pulling the flesh off of their face. It is disgusting and amazing at the same time that this is the world they live in, where like advertisements like this are just totally fine.
Yeah, a lot of shock value and a lot of the advertising. This was one of those ones where I was actually wondering, because we had talked about it last week with the brain dance stuff and the you know, your body against you kind of scenario, where I wonder if this is an advertisement to get an augment for your body, or if this is like a brain dance scenario where you're like, hey, you know, if you hate your body, you know, you can take it out on yourself if you want, or you can completely do whatever you want. Like, it was so trippy, and I'm like, maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a brain dance, maybe it's an augment ad. Like, I'm so curious to find out what all of these ads have to dive into, especially some of the drink ones that make absolutely no sense.
Yeah. I think this one is probably about changing your appearance. Like you and I were talking earlier about, like, why subject people to this version of myself if I can be a more beautiful version of myself? Let's just pull this meat off and put better meat on top of it, or just a synthetic face completely. Yeah, that might be what that has to do with. On this next image, which I'm pulling up right now, we have a better picture of the monorail system. So it's loading up. So this scene right here shows more complete monorails, or dual rails. I don't know, but it looks like some sort of mass transit that runs through many of the sections of the city. Also, there's an interesting amount of wires that just kind of connect different buildings to each other and move throughout the city. One of the things they discussed in this is that the city is very much kind of built on top of itself, in kind of a hodgepodge sort of way. So there are sections of the city that look a little bit more modern and structured and intentionally designed. And then there are sections that are just kind of built layer on top of layer. And I think that's what we have here, is kind of one of those sections that is, as you look further into the scene, you have buildings that were just kind of placed on top of other buildings and behind other buildings, and you have to run extra wires and things for them. But yeah, it's got that very, very layered experience, according to their description.
It's really clear to me that there are a lot of parts where buildings had been manufactured and then retrofitted to add functionality, whether it be through like internet or cabling, or they just, they need more power for this area here. It seems very kind of ad hoc with a lot of the cable systems and stuff that they put around some of the buildings. Whereas you look at some of the more nicer structures, the newer structures are definitely a lot better designed and have a really nice facade to them on the outside. It's clear that they had the planning in place to kind of have everything, built within the actual structure, as opposed to kind of having to punch out holes in the walls to put air ducting for things and things like that. It was really nice to see just how they kind of built up some of that. But one thing I wanted to touch on is, it's kind of cool to see the monorail system, the tram system that we have in place, because if you think back to when kind of Cyberpunk was introduced to the world, the tram, the monorail was our introduction to Night City. We saw V and he was walking up the car, and he kind of faced one of the windows, and then next thing you know, you pop out from a tunnel or a rail system or a building, and you see this vast expanse of Night City, and he's like, welcome to Night City. And it's like, oh, this is how it started. This is where we began. Yeah. And it's cool to see, like, this is going to be how we get around the world outside of cars and stuff. Like, that's integrated into the story, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think when I saw that original footage, I kind of assumed it was a subway that kind of came out of the underground on occasion, the way that sometimes subways just become trains and then they go back to being subways. But this monorail system up in the buildings is impressive. I wonder if all of that fits together and if it actually goes underground and then above ground and then way up around things. I don't know how complex it is, but it could be,
It'd be really neat to see.
Yeah. So this next one, and I want to pick your brain about this a little bit, because you did such a good representation on the last episode of the map of the city. We definitely got more content about at least this, and I'm going to play this and I'm going to go back and forth over it a few times, but this 3D representation of the layout of the city here is very cool. Let me go back to it again, and I'm just going to pause it. This gives you a real sense of scale. When you're looking at some of the maps that we showed last time, then it's just a top-down map. Now, this is a very topographical map where you can actually say the size of the buildings compared to other buildings. And you can clearly see the city center with the ring in the middle. I'll pull the map back up. Right in this area here, the city center, you can see like the major downtown buildings in a square around it. You can see like the port area with Arasaka Tower. I'm assuming this is Arasaka Tower, or is it this one? I'm not 100% sure.
I definitely think that Arasaka is the tallest building that we're going to be getting. I think there's probably a couple. There's one downtown, smaller buildings.
Yeah, and there's another. Yeah. There's a few that have the Arasaka name on them that I noticed in some of the clips. Yeah, for sure. You have some other really interesting structures. This stuff over here, and there's things that we can't very clearly see in this, but you can definitely tell the size of the buildings, and the idea that like this area over here is very, very dense, full of structures that are kind of built on top of each other, and then they have other areas that are much more low-lying structures without as much density and verticality to them. So a lot of really interesting bits and pieces to this. But it gives you a sense of the scale. I mean, think about it. Like if you saw a downtown area in your own, like a map of your own downtown area, it would probably be very similar in scale and size to something like this.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this is there are a lot of roads to the northwest or northeast actually, that really kind of indicate to me that that's the area that you're going to be spending a lot of your time as a nomad out in.
This section over here.
You'll actually, you're going to have to go out into that area, and you're going to spend a lot of time out there. And there's that one main freeway that just leads into Night City, and then once you get into Night City, that's where it splits up into the different areas. But
this section,
for the most part, there's little homes to the actual north up by the waterfront and Watson district. But I think a majority of your time as a nomad is going to be spent out past Santo Domingo and I think it's Haywood. Yeah, really cool. I love the idea that they actually kind of, I would love if this was the map that we actually saw in game, if we could actually see it kind of like this. And it reminds me of the opening to Ghost in the Shell. You know, when you see that, it shows you like the two blips on the map for the two helicopters that are flying in, but then it actually kind of pans down and you see the full cityscape itself in an actual like a erected state, and it shows like all the buildings and the different heights and stuff. And I was like, man, that was so cool. And this is like one of the next times where I've seen that kind of represented. So I would love it if we had access to this map in the actual game, and you could kind of actually see how this is all done. I would be really surprised if they went to the trouble of mapping or rendering all of this out just for this video. I would be really, really surprised about that, because they put a lot of work into this.
I have a feeling that's some sort of interface from inside the game that you can use to probably trace things or see where quests have you going, or navigate. It's probably reused for things like that. I
hope so. Yeah.
So this next scene is, and we were talking about Arasaka buildings. There's a scene here very clearly showing a more industrial part of the city, which I think must be just off the port section. And
that's Arasaka waterfront for sure.
Yeah, an Arasaka building over there. But that clearly is an Arasaka tower. That is a much more industrial looking building. So I have a feeling we're going to see a number of different buildings with different names, Arasaka, Militech, a number of these other corporations. So yeah, some
really
of that
cool
stuff showing up. Yep. Next, this section right here. Here, let me reload this screen and unmute it, because we've got a section here that we can watch.
Yes. So I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that Night City is easily the most complex thing that I or the others have worked on. The city is super organic, right? It's not like a chessboard layout, but the layout of the city is crazy, and you can tell that it grew in phases, right? Where buildings have been built on top of each other, and I guess the mega buildings that we have showcased are a great example of this. You'll actually see that they are located on some kind of pillar, and then expand outside and then up high into the sky. And underneath it, you'll have space for other buildings. This yields a lot of interesting experiences when it comes to exploration. And that's the one thing I'm most excited about for players to experience. We've been saying that our exploration is super vertical, right? But what this really means is that it changes the way you explore the city. Compared to our previous games, you won't be able to easily set out on a target in the distance, right? You won't be able to say, oh, there's a castle on a hill over there, I'll try to get there, and then you'll be lost on the way. But here it's much more intimate, much more moment to moment. You might.
So, Logan, this is more detail about the density of the city and the way that you're going to navigate. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think it's amazing. I think the concept of having a city that traverses vertically as opposed to expansive is amazing. We were talking a little about it before, but I really do want to know these mega buildings. They've got big numbers on them. There's 8 tower, there's the tower 11, there's our tower 5. I really want to know just how much this stuff is built out, because unlike a game like Spider-Man, where you're in a big city and it's cool because it's populated, there's tons of stuff going on, you're never on the ground floor with that game. You're always just kind of swinging from city top to city top or tower to tower. In this, it feels like you really are going to be immersive or immersed in the world. And I want to know, how easy is it to just take a right down an alley and go into a building and then start seeing the lobby of that building, and then take an elevator up to floor 13 or floor 14 and start walking around some of the rooms and start seeing like just how in depth are all of these. Like, so many times companies or not game developers will make buildings, and they'll put a lot of windows on the buildings, and they'll have those buildings like lit up, but they only build out a small portion, like a kind of a template for rooms. And as you're moving by it, like, you'll see it and it looks like it's 3D, but there's not really a whole lot of resources dedicated to each and every single one of those rooms. It's just an aesthetic. And I really want to know, going into this game, how many of these buildings are fleshed out with actual rooms that are actually designed, that have actual people in them doing their thing as you kind of explore? Or are there going to be areas where, say, like the Division 2 or the Division 1, where you're in New York City with Division 1, there are just flat areas that are completely blocked off by rubble, and you can't go past them, you can't do anything beyond them. Like, there's only a certain amount of explored area. And I was always bummed about that, because I'm like, man, this is such a cool world. They did such a good job representing New York. It's almost one for one with the buildings that they have in there, but so much of it is inaccessible. And Night City seems to be touting just how much verticality you can get with these mega buildings and the different floors, and taking a random elevator to a random place and having a quest pop up there. And I'm like, cool. I want to be able to feel that. I want to know how truthful that is, because it doesn't feel like it's ever been done in a game to the level that I want it to be, so that I can actually live in this world while I'm playing through it. And I'm hoping that this is the game that finally does it. I hope that that's accurate.
Yeah. I hope so too. It's a complexity thing, right? You can build out all these inner spaces, but do you have the time and manpower to do it? Do you have enough? Are you able to put enough interesting things that it's even worth going in them? So there's a balance there. I don't anticipate that we'll be able to open every door, but at the same time, I think that there's going to be little, and they talked about this, there's going to be little details, little stories, little things that we come across in nooks and crannies throughout the city. So I'm guessing it's going to be a balance. In the real world, if you were to walk around a city location like that, most of the doors wouldn't be open to you anyway. You wouldn't be able to just, whether they are physically locked and you just couldn't open them, which of course in a video game you could just bust the door down, but chances are there's really no reason to go in there. So why make it a thing that you could go into, unless you just want to create the realism of the game and go in there. It's a resource limitation kind of thing. So it would be neat to have all of that as an option, but at the same time, I completely understand putting your resources where they're most valuable and only doing as much of that as you can invest in.
Yeah, you make a good point. It really is one of those things like, yes, I could pull out my gun, I could shoot the lock and, kick the door open, but am I going to find anything that's really going to justify it? Yeah. Is it the back room of a restaurant? I'm just going to piss off the cooks and scare them. What's the point? What are you going to do? Rob the restaurant? Are you really? It's a video game, so you'll probably try it at some point and then reload a save or something, but does it really add to the game? Maybe it does. That was something with like Legend of Zelda that I always appreciated about Breath of the Wild. Like Breath of the Wild, if you could think of it and you thought that it might work, chances are it actually did work. And in fact, things that you didn't think would work did end up working. So there was a whole system that they built in there with physics and elements and stuff. And that was a moment where the world kind of played a game, and they're like, if you can think it, then you can generally do it, because the tools and the rules are in place, right? And the fiction is set up to give you that freedom. And I feel like Cyberpunk is like trying to achieve that just based on how much effort they're putting into the world, into the AI, into everything about the city and stuff. And that's a really interesting prospect to me, because those are the things where it's going to be really cool to see what people learn they can and can't do when this game goes live.
Yeah. The one benefit of that kind of being able to go anywhere, do anything kind of thing is like, imagine you're on a quest where you're running from a gang and you don't have the firepower to fight back. So you have to run, and you're just trying to dodge through buildings and stores. And so you're opening up every door, and you're busting down doors, and you're busting through windows, and you're jumping through, whatever, over tables, and people are screaming and yelling and moving out of the way. Like, that could be a really cool situation, because you could take any path through any of those buildings that you want it'd be like a really cool movie sequence where somebody cuts through like an apartment complex, and they run past people in their living rooms and they're like, like that kind of stuff happens. And then they jump out the window and they're like, whoa. And then like, how did you survive? But of course you got cyber legs. So yeah, of course you survived. I don't know. Seems like some cool stuff. Let's move on, because we could probably talk about this section forever. In the pre-show, you brought up this guy right here, Johnny Silverhand, showing up in the trailer for a brief, like 2 seconds. Like, here's the clip. Ready? Here it is. Gone. Like, that's it. That's all we get. That's Johnny in the world right there, or at least looking like he's in the world right there. And one thing that Logan noticed here is that light is actually playing off of the character model. He has the light coming through the window in his hair, reflecting off of his metal arm, even off of his vest, kind of the leather corners of his vest, off of his face. It looks like he is really in the world. But the question is he really in the world, or is he a hallucination or a projection in the mind of V? And just like any other hallucination you would have, it would feel like the character was actually in the room with you. So it wouldn't make sense for the lighting not to work, if that makes sense. So what do you think, Logan?
I want to know, man. It's so hard to tell. Like, if this is just a projection in your mind, if Johnny is just a figment of your imagination, just a ghost in your cerebral cortex, in your augmented brain, would your brain place him where he's sitting talking to you? And would your brain, like, would the cybernetics actually alter the lighting so that he is affected by it? Or would he just look completely out of place, like a really bad green screen, like, right. What if they didn't match the lighting on a green screen character or on a background, like, is that how this would work? Or is he actually there? Like, is he real? Because we know he's dead, but he doesn't look anything like any of the books that they did. And with I was looking at the Richard Knight thing, and the Richard Knight thing, they actually have him on the Night City Love, or I think it's Night City Love. It's in the art book for sure. The art book has a picture of the late Richard Knight, and in the game, or at least in the RPG, it looks like the same artwork. It doesn't look like they changed much about the artwork. So Johnny looks different from how he is in the RPG, because obviously it's Keanu Reeves as modeled in game. And I want to know, like, is this even the same Johnny? Is it a new Johnny? Is he real? Is he actually there? Or did the scenes where we saw where he was like projected and he was kind of glitching out, like, was that just a him, like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope to V in this instance? Like, I gotta know, man.
He's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Cyberpunk. Oh, they do reference Star Wars. We do know that. Yeah. So Star Wars exists in the Cyberpunk universe. So maybe. I would love to hear some of your speculations. If you guys want to share any of that stuff in the chat, feel free to share that around as we continue through the rest of this. One more thing, two more things. One, there was a screenshot. I'm not going to pull it up right now. That's of a sign out in, I don't know, one of the more, crappy areas. I don't know what area it was in, but it says aliens kidnapped my wife and kids. Help me celebrate. I thought that was funny. And then we have this clip about mini stories. So here, let me get this up and running.
Have actually named every single street in the city. So not only will NPCs be able to communicate their locations or the locations they want you to visit by sort of referring to the street names, but also you will be able to talk to your friends about it in that way, right? Have you been to Poplar Street in Japantown, for example? And I think this is a small detail, but the philosophy that we have with these kind of things is that, many, many small things contribute to the sum of it, which is hopefully then you being able to explore a city that you feel is truly alive and that you haven't been experiencing before.
So this goes back to the whole explorability of the city and how much is there. I mean, they're naming all the streets. You can be like the cross section of these two stages. I love when he says Poplar Street and does this with his arm. I thought that was funny. Yeah, cool stuff. Really cool stuff. I like the idea of named streets. I mean, in a real city, you're going to have named streets. The idea that they know that you're going to want to explore, and that's really part of their intentionality around design. It bodes well for this idea of, just finding things all over the place, little stories. What do you think? I really hope
that our introduction to Night City that we get in there and we don't know where things are, we're really kind of unsure of like how to get to places, especially if you're Nomad. And as you're just kind of walking up and down the street, you get a guy in a Statue of Liberty costume, and he's trying to sell you a map to the stars, and he's just and you get a map from him, and that little pamphlet is how you scan it, and then it's in your brain. So now you have this full topographical map of Night City. I really hope that they kind of introduce that to you in a really organic way, because it's the little things like he's talking about that really impact how much fun you have with the world. The little stories having street names, and I want to know like why some of the streets are named they are. I'm looking forward to seeing I really hope they do this. Or at least I hope the community does this. I hope the community finds things in the game that are fun, and instead of like telling you where to go step by step, they're like, hey, maybe you should check out the corner of Lincoln and Fifth. Just see what you find. Mm-hmm. And then you start dropping these little hints to other people like, hey, I saw this was really cool. Head over to such and such street and take a look around, the third dumpster in the alley. You might find something fun there. And lo and behold, it's a mini version of a Death Star that was thrown in the trash. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. You could even, heck, with the multiplayer version of this, where you have a world that you could constantly be changing and adding things to, you could put on the Night City website, you could put something like, newsflash, this address, something happened. And then people would go, oh, I gotta go find that. And then actually go find it in the city and show up and see what's going on at that address. That would be really cool. Just like in the real world. Amazing. You can just look up an address. Can you imagine? Oh my God. Imagine if you could have like bounty system and you could have a bounty, and then there's like an APB that gets put out and they're like, oh, you got to head over to such and such, and you have to listen to the radio scanner to listen for these bounties on other gang members that are out there causing havoc. And you're going to go out there as a vigilante, and where the streets are. So you got to know the fastest path to get there and where the traffic, like, I hope there's traffic. Oh, yeah. Oh, what if there's like traffic? Oh, there's plenty of traffic. And you have to avoid the Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of cars moving around. Busy. Yeah, I would assume that there's a working traffic system because we see lots of cars and things driving around the city. Yeah, very cool stuff. All right, cool. We've got so much more to get to. We need to do the middle of the show real quick. We have all the gangs at least all the gangs that were talked about. We're going to show the clip of each thing. We'll have a quick little discussion about each one, and then we'll get through the rest of the show. But first, let's move on to the middle of the show. All right. So thank you to our patrons. We actually have some new patrons this week. I need to pull this up. I didn't prep for this part, but if you are interested in supporting the show, there's so many things to go through on this episode that I didn't even do the mid-show prep. But if you would like to support the show, if you're a fan of our content, if you're excited for the things that we're bringing you, and we'll be continuing to bring you even once this game comes out, and our deep dives into actual gameplay and the lore that's revealed in the games, and even more information about the stuff that happens before 2077, then please consider subscribing on patreon.com/cyberpunk lorecast. We have
Let me pull it up. We've got at least one new patron this week. We have three, potentially three new patrons. I don't remember which ones I thanked last week, but we have Captain H, Zectro, and Anissa C. Thank you for being patrons and supporting the show. That is very, very kind of you, and I hope you guys are enjoying the ad-free episodes. I will be adding more to the Patreon in the future. The next thing I'm going to add is access to some of our patron-only channels in the Discord. Some of the other Patreons that I run for the other shows have access to some of these channels. I will be including that with your Patreon subscription as well. So if you already are a patron, then get ready for that. You'll be able to link your Patreon account with your Discord account in order to jump in there and have patron conversations in kind of the secret channels where only those of us who are in this special club can talk. That was my Simpson. Man, 90s jokes.
By the way, the patrons are the best, by the way.
Yeah,
I know there's awesome. A lot of folks in the there's some good folks in the chat here, but they're not patrons.
Oh no, he called you guys out.
People in the patrons.
Some of them are probably patrons.
I love them. They're great people, but they're just not patrons. I'm sorry.
Oh no, our viewership just cut in half.
Significant.
You just ran them all off. So
I love you guys.
Thank you guys for being here during the live show. I really do like you guys jumping in and sharing some of your comments. Even when we can't respond to them during the show, it's always nice to read them. At the end of the show, we will call out some of the stuff that you guys are commenting on, as usual. Also, thank you to our sponsors. The Robots Radio Network is sponsored by a number of different sponsors, including now we are sponsored by audiobooks.com. And you can get 3 free audiobooks. So if you like listening to books in your ear holes, then that is a great way to do it. And it doesn't even cost anything. You can sign up for a month. You get 3 free books, including 2 of their VIP books. So even some of the more newer or high demand books are available to you. There's tons of good books out there. I'm sure there's some really cool cyberpunk literature that you could be reading, books about cyberpunk movies, things like that. I don't have a specific one to call out right now. The last audiobook I listened to was the Game of Thrones books, the Songs of Ice and Fire, which the books are phenomenal. They're way better than the show ended up. Oh, that's so sad. But they're very, very cool. You should go check them out. Click the link in the show notes. You can go access those and check them out. And no cost. You don't even have to buy anything. You could just sign up for the first month, get 3 free books, and then cancel your subscription if you want. You could totally go do that. So go check that out. All right, let's get to the rest of the show. Sixer in chat says in your nose holes too. I mean, if you can listen to them through your nose holes, then I guess that's cool. Maybe you've got augmentations in your nose for hearing. Maybe. I'm not going to judge. All right, let's move into the gangs. And I have a clip here for each of the gangs. So let's get that loaded up. Here's the first one, Melstrom.
I will say that all of you guys in chat, you are awesome. Even though I say that you're not necessarily the best because you're not patrons, which is also true, but I still love you equally.
he was just joking, guys. He's just joshing you. All right, let's watch Melstrom.
A Maelstrom ganger killed a young kid right in front of my eyes for shits and giggles. Chrome-sucking psychos. And who the fuck are you to say what can and can't be? I'm gonna introduce you to our meat grinder. About time we had some fun!
Think Melstrom never forgets? Never!
I hate these Borg fuckers.
So that's the Melstrom section. Thoughts on this one, Logan?
They're so metal. I love them.
They're so metal.
I can't wait.
Oh, so
they
metal.
kick so much butt. I can't wait for it. I love those guys. I know that those guys are probably not the best people to be like fawning over, but
not by any stretch. They are the chaotic evil of the cyberpunk world. Yeah,
I know, it's great. I can't wait. They're amazing. I love how metal they are, and it's really apparent that they really know who they are and what they want. They are not backing down from anything or anyone, and they're willing to step up to it. That's just one of those things that I'm I'm just attracted to. I love power. What can I say? They're so metal.
Nice.
I can't wait.
Nice. All right. Well, let's yeah, very metal. Let's move on to the next one. Here we go.
Just a gang like any other, right?
I'll take the Valentinos. They follow God and the Santa Madre. Honor means something to them.
How'd you meet Jackie?
We started out together.
In the Valentinos?
No, in the fucking Bible book club.
I gotta give style points to the Valentinos. They have a punishment for every occasion.
Gangster life, puto!
Quick shout out to everyone in Haywood and Santo Domingo. Lately, the Valentinos and 6th Street have had a bigger bone to pick.
All right. So that's the Valentinos. So first off, I got to jump in here before I pass this off to Logan. Logan, they are extremely stylish. I really like the style of the Valentinos. Like awesome looking suits and like cool hair. And did you see the gold car? There's a gold.
Oh, yeah.
The car is gold plated like across the side of it. Like badass stuff. Also, Jackie was a Valentino. So we've got a little bit more insight into Jackie's background as well, which is pretty cool.
It's interesting because I was actually expecting him to be Himalayan. I was kind of surprised by that, but yeah, the whole gang itself is awesome. I think it's great. The punishment for everything I think is a nice little nod to the self-deprecation that you grew up with as a Catholic, and a lot of Latinos grow up Catholic.
Yes,
and I saw that and I heard that and I was like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, we do.
That's you can relate to that. Yeah. And there's so much like Latino culture in there. I'm not Hispanic. Some people confuse me as Hispanic because I have kind of slightly darker skin and I've got dark hair and dark eyes. I'm half Greek, so I do have kind of a Mediterranean background, but yeah, there's, I don't know. I'm not of that culture, but there's so much swagger and so much like bravado. And I don't know. It's just something about it is just really good. I think it's really cool. All
Very
right,
cool.
I love
them.
Let's move into 6th Street.
6th Street. Why'd they want to wipe you?
I don't can't fucking stand Tinos.
Fucking suck! I've dealt with 6th Street before. We do the run, they'll transfer the cred.
Come on, let's go before 6th Street shows up. Shot! Any more Second Amendment fans in the house, huh?
Hate those bastards. Vomit lofty patriotic bullshit all day. Time to bring. So, all right. So 6th Street, the kind of ultra-nationalist group of the thing. And so I guess we talked about this in the pre-show. We should comment on this. Thank you for those of you who left reviews for the show. We did get a 1-star review recently that says that the show is too political. So, too political? I don't know if the show is too political. We tried to kind of tread things a little bit and stay a little bit more, just kind of like discussing things from different perspectives. And of course, everybody has their politics and everybody has their beliefs. But for the most part, we're just going to call things as they are. So we've talked on the show before about the inspiration for the world and Mike Pondsmith and the things that he has studied about the nature of society and the way the American system is going and the different groups in America and how this is extrapolated into the future for this dark future potential of things becoming even more extreme. So we're not going to not talk about political things because it's part of the show. It's part of the game. It's part of Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is built on these concepts. So to not discuss that would be to leave out a huge section of the stuff going on in there. So sorry, if you're not into anything political at all and you want to avoid that at all costs, then maybe don't play the game, don't listen to the podcast. But I mean, it just kind of is what it is. A group like this obviously is ultra nationalistic. They're very pro-American, even though they live in Night City, which is no longer part of the United States, the new United States. So it's interesting because they're of a culture that is no longer officially part of the culture that city is inherently part of. So that's interesting. Also, the other thing I noticed here in this clip is that the 6th Street Gang, a positive quality about them is that they are multicultural. Did you notice that there are Caucasians, people of Asian background, people of African backgrounds? They seem to be multicultural,
except for I didn't notice any Hispanics, which might be the details here of the conflict between them and the Valentinos. That may be one of the driving things. Maybe they aren't, say, just pro a race. Maybe they are pro peoples who were in their minds traditionally American, but Latinos aren't in that group or something like that. I don't know. I don't know their justification, but that could be something going on here.
Yeah, the conversation between Jackie and V was very, very indicating that Jackie believes that the 6th Street game has some prejudice against Latinos, and that it probably stems a lot from the Valentinos, which is interesting because they're so right next to each other as far as turf goes. Like, their turf is separated by very, very little space. And one of the things that I was talking about last episode was kind of the overlooking that the NCPD has for the 6th Street gang, and this video in particular, there's even a bird's eye view of a scene of murder where it's clear that the 6th Street gang and the NCPD had a shootout, and that there were bodies on the ground from both groups. So even though, last week I was indicating that there might be some oversight on how much gets done by the 6th Street gang by the NCPD just not paying attention to them or being okay with it, it's clear in this game that there are going to be some rifts, and that there are going to be NCPD out there trying to stop gang activity regardless of what gang it is. So it was interesting to see how the idea of Jackie coming from the Valentinos and having his perspective on the 6th Street gang might influence players as they play through the game and try to decide, do they align themselves more with the Valentinos, or do they align themselves more with the 6th Street gang? And how does that relationship get impacted by Jackie being your partner for the beginning of the game? Like, it's really interesting. I can't wait to kind of unravel this whole
background of what's going on there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's so well done.
Yeah, and to kind of finish up our quick little discussion about politics, there's some more chat in here too. I get that people play games in order to escape things, to think about other things. We have a lot of cares and worries about things going on in the world right now. Everybody does. That's normal. But just, it's a warning. This game has inherently political situations in it, simply due to the way the game is designed and the stories that are being told. And so we're not going to shy away from conveying those things, but at the same time, we're not here to tell you how you should vote or who we think is going to win the next election, because that's not what the podcast is about. It's about the game and the concepts in the game, and how the concepts in the game relate to and break away from real world issues, because the world of Cyberpunk is based on our own world. So we will be talking about information in and around politics, but we're not here to preach political concepts or what is right or wrong to you. So I hope that distinction is understood. It's more of an academic nature than it is about any sort of agenda. We don't have an agenda for you politically.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I like to look at how our world is and how Cyberpunk is, because I'm always comparing because of just the influence that the world has on this game and how this game could have an influence on the world. It's a story of woe. This is a warning to people, like, hey, this is where things could go if we don't pay attention to things. Yeah. And as much fun as it is to get lost in a game, I do it way more than I really should. I try to be ever present in the world and what's going on that I can help impact however I want to, and I don't expect anyone to follow anything I say or do when it comes to the real world. But in the game, I'm definitely going to help you pick what's best for playing in the game, because totally. I definitely think the Melstrom are right where they should be. They're doing the best thing. They're the best game, evil. And you really should just augment it. Get the big red eye, guys. Sorry, I'll stop. All
right. Good conversation. Good conversation. Let's move on. There's still more. Here we go.
Bring on the future.
Any idea how many attacks from behind the black wall we neutralized? If the Voodoo Boys breach the black wall, we'll all be fucked.
Voodoo Boys. Urban myth, I thought. Just net runners spooking each other. No such gang.
You know, I heard a few things about you. The Voodoo Boys, best runners in town.
You do not steal from the Voodoo Boys. I see you, always. For them, Pacifica's just Haiti 2.0. Their own island, cut off from the rest of the city.
This is our turf, our home. Until last week, the animals crawled in.
All right. So, Voodoo Boys. This is another one of your favorites. You talked about this a lot in the last episode. And very much like what you related in the last episode. Net runners, they're hacking stuff. They're behind the scenes. People don't really know how many there are. They're kind of like ghosts out there doing their thing. Everybody's a little bit unsure of them. The other thing I really like about this clip is getting in the ice water. Is there a scene? First, are you V in that situation, or are you, seeing through somebody else's perspective in what's it called? One of those dream things.
Brain dance.
In a brain dance. Are you seeing somebody else's perspective, or are you V? And either way, are they getting in the ice water in order to keep their components cool so they can net run faster and overclock their own body systems? Is that a thing? Because that sounds really cool.
I think it's twofold. So remember when we had that gameplay video, that 40-minute gameplay video back in 2018, and it was V and Jackie, and they were busting into a room where they were, I don't know if it was scavengers or Ripper Doctors, but they were going after that person, and you were trying to get access to their chip, but you had to find her body and get her out of the ice. Yes. So that trauma team could locate her. It makes me wonder if there's something that they put into the ice water that masks your location so that you can hack anonymously without people being able to trace it. But I do love the idea of being able to overclock the systems in your body to kind of be able to brute force things faster. You know, if you got to brute force your way through a firewall, and you're going to have a lot of compute cycles to do that, overclocking your system is a good way to do that.
Right.
And if
it's
that happens,
heat up.
I could totally see.
Yeah. Why not water cool your own body in order to hack better? Like, that sounds amazing. Yeah. And does that lead to story situations where you don't have the ice and you're pushing the boundaries of your overclock, and you might overheat your own system and break something or disable your ability to do something else? That sounds really cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a gameplay component, Melstrom, but go on.
Oh yeah, I think it could be. Everything I said about Melstrom is wrong. It's all about the Voodoo Boys. You guys have to go with the Voodoo Boys because they are the best. They are the most amazing. They're the most metal. If you're sitting there looking at these guys and you're thinking like, nah, they're not that cool. No, they are that cool.
They are that cool. All right, let's I'm gonna put these beefy beefcakes up on our screen. Animals, they're coming up next. Man, look at these guys. Look at these meatballs. All right, here we go.
Animals are the craziest fucking gang in the city.
Breaker stall!
Animals aren't the play here, are they? They're hired muscle. Someone else needed them.
I fucked you over, you fucked the gang over. Somewhere at the start of the story, somebody fucked the corp. See how this works now?
Okay, so these guys are so big. We've seen V in the pictures from like at least the pictures they've sent out, the first section of the game, and my arms are only a little smaller than V's, right? Like I'm not a big beefy dude. V's not a big beefy. How the heck are you blocking tree trunk arms that are 4 times the size of your arm with your arms up like this? Like, how does that even work? Augments, I guess.
So that makes me wonder, like, are they actually augmented bodies, or are they just like really steroided guys up?
They for the most part, as from what I understand, they are meat, and they are like genetic and chemically, enhanced, yes, so that they are just walking tree trunks. I mean, these guys are huge. Even the ladies in the group are just like, they have the physique of large men. Like they're beefy beefcakes. They're beefy beef boys. I think I'm going to call them. They're no longer the animals. They are the beefy beef boys from this point on.
Yeah, I really love these guys. I think it's amazing that they're able to sustain themselves in a world that seems so hard on augmenting your body. At least even just like little augments here and there. These guys look like their augmentation is just to really embrace like the natural meat side of the human race. You know, it seems like that is their goal. And I love that the whole idea of them is just, we're going to have underground fights that you can bet on, and you can hire us to be guards, but you don't want to mess with us because we're crazy. We're just nothing but roid rage, and it's so cool to see these guys. I can't wait to see what they are the literal meat shields that you have to get through to get where you're going, and it's so awesome.
Yeah, and they're using guns and stuff, so they're not just melee dudes who just go up and trying to punch you or hit you with a hammer. They're shooting at you with guns and things. So that's pretty cool. Now, last episode we talked about tiger claws, and you said, or we both kind of agreed that maybe I'm a tiger claw. I don't know. Maybe I'm a Valentino. I don't know. I'm kind of siding with them too. Both of these have style. Look at these dudes. Very cool looking. Lots of cool jackets, glasses, swords, things like that. Here we go.
My husband's new Westbrook, very high in the tiger claws. They did what made the best eddies, sold sex and black market tech.
See a lot of tigers. They run this place.
Know what else they do well? Break the knees of people who ask questions.
I gotta do something.
Shut the fuck up! The tigers will kill us.
All right, so tiger claws, what do you think about them?
They're cool. They are. It's hard not to love these guys. I mean, they are essentially the epitome of what you see, like the triad, the yakuza. They are the Japanese gangs kind of brought to life and just epitomized in this world. And it's so cool that they were able to bring this futuristic approach to them. You know, they really do embody I don't know if you saw some of the earlier videos that they had where it looked like there were some quote unquote anime girls. Like they went full on anime with this, and it's going to be great. Anyone that's a big fan of anime, you're going to have a really awesome time interacting with the tiger claw, because they are just taking it to the next level. And I want this. I want the bikes. I want the blades, and I want the bikes. And they've got them both. And I can't, as much as they are kind of lower on the list of gangs for me, I can't ignore that, because that's where I'm going to get that Akira feel.
Yeah, the blades, the flaming blades. That one guy's flipping through the air with the two fire swords or whatever those things are. I don't know what those are. Very cool stuff. Yes, please. That's very cool. I don't know what else to say about them. The other thing is the old lady who's like in charge of the gang, or whatever her role is. Like this idea of like the old Asian lady who is like looks demure but is absolutely a badass and will do anything to get the job done. Like that's also very cool. It feels very Daredevil. Yeah, like who are the bad guys? The what's the gang in Daredevil? The Asian gang.
Can't remember the gang name. Can't remember the name. I know who you're talking about.
The woman who's in charge of that gang is, like she looks like this little old lady, but she is a badass. Very cool stuff. All right, let's talk about the Moxes. They're up next. And here we have the screenshot of them coming up. And reminder, you got some sexy ladies up here on screen, but remember that shiny skin isn't actually skin for a lot of them. Those are augments that make them harder to kill and all sorts of other things. So I like that this is kind of an alluring thing that's very dangerous at the same time. That concept's pretty cool. Here we go.
Come on, baby.
Tiger claws killed one girl too many, so people took matters into their own hands.
Folk went ballistic. Girls, pimps, outcasts, the whole freak show. It's how the Mox got started.
Think you're some kind of gangoon now, huh?
Us Moxes have each other's back. We look out for one another. You looking for some company tonight?
How'd you hook up with the Mox?
I thought Susie and the gang could really change something in this city.
Moxes and Nomads don't seem so different. Both seem to yammer a lot about community, solidarity. Tell me about the Badlands.
All right, so now we're moving into Badlands stuff. What do you think about the Moxes here?
Really interesting. This was really kind of cool because it dove into a few things that we really I really don't have a grasp on how important the Moxes are going to be, because they are the smallest gang in Night City, but they are so integral to learning about brain dancing and understanding how to access people's memories and stuff. The weird thing about this is that it's clear, like if you're a Harley Quinn fan like I am, like this is the epitome. This is a whole game built up of Harley Quinns. And I think it's awesome. There was a scene in here that we kind of glossed over that was really interesting, and it was a scene where it looked like it was Jackie in a club, and everyone was dancing around him, and he was dancing with a girl, but that girl didn't look anything like the female V that we can play in game, but it's definitely from her perspective at one point and from his perspective at one point, but it didn't look like it was a brain dance. So I really want to know, like, are we always going to be in control of V when we're playing through the game, or are we going to be taking on different characters to play through a scenario as we kind of move along? Because it wouldn't make sense from an RPG aspect. Like you're trying to level your character, you're trying to gain experience and complete quests from your perspective, right? But it was such a weird thing that they had that in there, because it was clear that there was a cinematic story being told about why Jackie was dancing with this girl, why he got shoved. Very, very interesting. I don't know. That's I kind of got hung up on that in comparison to the overview of the Moxies.
Yeah. Again, is it part of the storytelling? Is it just some sort of recap that we're watching while not actually being in game? Is it something that was made just for a trailer that isn't actually in game? Or is it something else? Yeah, I don't really know. It was interesting. I think the Moxes are primarily female. It seems like there are some either male members or at least workers in the club. I noticed that. There are some men who are dressed very similarly to them and look like they're part of the group.
There's an interesting thing. So the guy that we see in this video, and if you haven't watched the video, I definitely recommend it, because there's a guy, he's balding, which I relate to, and he's wearing fishnets, which I also relate to. But there's a scene with him later on. Trust me, I was back in the 90s, very different Logan.
Okay. All right.
There was a scene where he was actually, he had a gun in his hand, but it wasn't a gun. It was like a Ripper Doctor gun. And it was really unclear what was going on, because he had one hand on a woman's head, and the woman was in a like a dentist chair, and her lower jaw was removed, and he was using this light gun on her to do something to her. And it didn't seem like it was, it seemed like it was pretty painful, whatever he was doing. So I wonder if he's a Ripper Doctor for the Moxes, and he's who helps them get their augments, but he's not like, he's not like the like he's just there because that's
he's somebody that associates with them but isn't a gang member.
Really, really interesting. But I'm curious to find out more about who that character is.
I still think they're really cool. The whole being, I don't know, standing up for workers' rights, even if you're doing something that is a little bit illegal currently in most places. But at the same time being dangerous and seductive at the same time. They've got some cool style to them as well. I think that they're tougher than they look. I've always liked that kind of, surprise kind of element. It also, when we talked on the previous episode, they're not the largest gang, so they're going to have to do things in ways that are unexpected in order to, flex their muscle and defend themselves. Cool stuff there. And then we have another gang that we didn't talk about last time. This is the Wraiths, and they are out in the Badlands. Check this out.
Not much going on out here, huh?
Au contraire. This is an ecosystem. Nomads, wrapped in Shiv, corporations, and drifters, they form a complete whole. Remove one part, the delicate balance topples.
Here in the Aldecaldos, it all stays in the family.
Classic dilemma. What comes first?
So we have the Wraiths and the Aldecaldos, who, if I pronounced that right, who look like these two Badlands gangs. Not a whole lot of other detail about them in this section. We see a lot of driving around and, out in the Badlands, deserts, shooting things, cars, stuff that we already know about happen in the Badlands. But this makes me wonder, we're not just getting gangs in the city, we're also getting gangs in the Badlands. How much do they play into it? Is this primarily a nomad life path thing that you run into, or do you run into them regardless of your life path and have to deal with them? Do you have some sort of association if you start as a nomad life path with one or two of these gangs? Or are they, how does this really integrate with the rest of the game? I don't know.
The interesting thing about these is, and I haven't dove into these two groups as much as possible, but it definitely feels like the Aldecados are the standard nomad gang. They're the main group that's out there. There might be some sections of nomads that are kind of independent of the gangs. We don't know that quite yet, but it definitely talks to how the Moxes and the nomads are very much about community. And the Wraiths, just based on the name alone, speaks to them kind of being figments or ghosts, or not necessarily being in with the community. Otherwise, why would they have their own gang? And it makes me wonder if these guys tend to operate outside of the normal community that would be the nomads, because if the nomads are so much about the community, then it only makes sense that the race would be on the outside of that, and they are the ones kind of pushing the Aldecados to have to do things that they don't necessarily want to have to deal with because they're trying to stay to themselves. So I would love to understand more about them. I love the idea of the skulls and the green aesthetic that they have, and maybe if they are like ex-ghost op kind of mercenaries that are just out there doing things on the low, kind of staying in the shadows for the nomads.
Yeah, or maybe they're like an elite group among the nomads who kind of keep them safe, or I don't know. There might be something else going on. That'd be cool too. Yeah, like you've got like the regular nomad families, but then you might have a group of them who are part of some sort of militant arm that's able to, I don't know, help a caravan get it safely from one place to another, or scout out a situation, or take somebody down if they need to be taken down. That kind of thing. I don't know.
What if they're like in Lord of the Rings, they're the Black Knights, the witches,
the ring race?
Kind of ride around.
Yeah,
the ring race. What if they're like the ring race,
Nazgul,
and they're just they kind of go around and they have a target and they go after that target, and it's like a pack of wolves, and they just kind of hunt down that person, and you get a bounty on your head, and that's what pushes you to have to go to Night City, is you have to escape the race, and they're just elite. And they're just going to come after you. I don't know. I'm having really cool ideas about that now, though.
Yeah, I like wolves of the Badlands. Kind of a fun concept. All right, so that's most of that stuff with the gangs that we got to see this time. There are others, but we didn't get anything else on the others. We talked about Johnny Silverhand, and then we've got this one extra little clip here to kind of round out the end of the show. Before I do that, if you are in chat and you have any specific questions or comments you'd like us to relate right at the end of the show, then now's a good time to put those in the chat. We'll take a look at them as they come in, and we'll comment on them. But this is an interesting little piece here that Logan noted about what may be... I don't know if this is a limitation of an early build of the game, or if this is a limitation of, say, draw distance, AI distance, physics distances in game rendering, or if this might be a little quirk of the way some of the stuff actually functions when you're up close and things. There are, and I'm going to pull up the screen right here, there are some people at the very bottom left part of the screen. It happens very quickly, just crowds of people walking past each other, and they appear to kind of clip through each other. It's a very minor thing, but interesting. Like maybe this is a glitch. I don't know. But there's not a lot of these in the actual footage that we see. So here, take a look. Did you see that? I'll play it one more time. We're going to go back a little bit. Playing through. I jumped too many seconds back, but just, here we go. On the bottom left, they kind of clip through each other. So we don't know. We don't know what that is. If it's even, maybe it might just even be the perspective that we're looking at it. But when you're pouring through all of this content, you kind of find all these little bits and pieces. So it was worth bringing up. Any other thoughts on that, Logan?
This game is going to be amazing, and I'm excited to play it. But it's definitely clear the more we see this, the more I'm starting to kind of nitpick little things like the way lighting is on hair, the way the AI. I'm starting to get critical now, and I'm trying to hone in on the things that I have to set my expectations of. So when I saw this, I saw that, and I was thinking, man. Like you can kind of see the AI working around it, and it's a background shot, and my mind goes to like, okay, it's a big wide open expanse. There's no character V in the area, so how much resources are being dedicated to this AI? And as they're walking, the two people are kind of going around the one guy, and the one guy that's walking in the opposite direction just kind of keeps lumbering on. And it's interesting because it looks like they attempt to go around him, but for whatever reason they just kind of clip through each other. And I'm just chalking this up to AI working in the background and not having that full collision with each other. But at the same time, I'm like, is this going to be something that I see all the time in the game?
Am I going to notice this all the time now, and is it going to drive me nuts?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to kind of temper my expectations on how good the AI is going to be in the game when it comes to big crowded areas, and how many times am I going to see someone clip into another person. So I just wanted to bring it up just to be kind of like, hey, we're talking really good about the game. We're really excited. Just know this is current gen technology. This is a lot that they're doing, and you're going to run into some weird stuff while you're playing through it. So just kind of be cool with that.
It's just like any other huge open world game. There's going to be weird glitches. I mean, how many times did Roach, Geralt's horse in The Witcher 3, just like climb on top of a roof or stand on the side of a cliff sideways, and it's like, what are you doing, Roach? Get off the cliff. Like there's just quirks. These games are going to have quirks. You can't design something this complex and large and interconnected without having strange things happen on occasion. And maybe that explains our own glitches in the real world as well. maybe that explains just humans being derps half the time, is that like we're too complex. There's going to be glitches. So let's finish up the episode. We've got a question here from Awesome Banana Man. Great name, by the way, Awesome Banana Man. Welcome to the stream. What is the least exciting thing you've heard about Cyberpunk 2077? Ooh, most and least exciting. You have any thoughts on this one, Logan?
Most exciting?
Yeah, go ahead.
Definitely guns. I still think the guns are probably the most exciting. I can't wait to play around with the tech weapons and to try out like some of the mantis blades and stuff. Like I've never gotten to play with a game that has like mantis blades and stuff like that. So I want to play with those. That is definitely the most exciting to me. Least exciting is a little bit harder to kind of grasp right now. So far, I'm going to say probably Brain Dance is probably the least exciting because it seems to really slow down. Yeah, it seems to slow down the pace. Like it's a really cool kind of analyzing of a scene and to figure out what it is. But it's like, I know I'm going to be the guy that sits there and just continues to scrub through every frame to be like, all right, am I missing anything? Is there anything weird going on? But yeah, I feel like Brain Dance is going to be the least exciting part of this game.
Yeah, man, I have such a hard time choosing favorites and worsts. It always just comes down to my feelings at the time. I like what you said about the weapons, the guns, the gunplay. I'm very much at this point siding with this idea of playing through as a solo first, just because the gunplay looks so good that I just kind of want to open up a door, blast everybody, and just move forward. I'm sure the hacking is really cool. I'm sure the techie skills and the equipment you can use is really cool. We haven't seen a ton of that stuff yet. But yeah, I think that just the way everything looks visceral, the impact of the weapons, the sparks of things flying, the physics of it. I love gameplay physics and the way things happen. So that might be something that I go to. I think I'm most impressed with CD Projekt Red's, and this is something we talked about in the pre-show too, their commitment to staying in the lore. The lore is very thick, it's very dense, and we've only begun to tap into it on this podcast, even though we're dozens of episodes in. But so much of what they're building on is really, really grounded in this reality that has been fleshed out over the last 20 some years, 30 years. So I think I'm really, really impressed with that stuff. Least excited. I hope they can continue to refine the melee combat. For as exciting as the gun combat looks, the melee combat still looks a little bit unfinished. But then again, maybe it's finished at this point. We just don't know. So, just kind of hedging myself on that a little bit. I'm hoping that feels and works better than it looks like it might. But then again, we don't really know. Neither of us have been able to have a playthrough yet. CD Projekt Red, if you'd like to send an early copy our ways, we'd love to review it for you. But those are our answers on that one. Let's see, anything else in here? I was surprised at 70 gigabytes. Would think that it was 100 or 120 gigabytes. Yeah, it's nice that they're keeping the size from being too large. Yeah, I think that's most of the questions that we got. What is going to be your first cybernetic upgrade? Ooh, Logan, what do you think? I'm sure there are certain things that you can only unlock as you gain enough money to do so, or abilities to do so. I'm sure certain things are going to be a little bit more sectioned off. But if you could just go for anything, what would you go for?
It's so tough. I want to play around with the hacking. Like I said, the Voodoo Boys are one of the games that I really, really love the idea of being a net runner for. I would love to understand just how much you can on the fly hack with different people, and just seeing like that lasso that you can kick out and hack into a person's body and shut them down that way. Like I really want to understand how that all works, because having like different statuses on enemies and being able to use something to disable like parts of their functionality or like lower their defenses really makes it easier if I'm happy with a certain type of loadout for weapons and guns. That if I can use that to help kind of, if I can get through an animal by shooting him, that's great. But if he doesn't have any augments, it's going to really kill my net runner ability. So I want to see how that impacts with hacking into things and stuff. So that's probably my first, if I could choose anything from the get-go. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So to go along with this whole like combat focus, having augments for vision and hearing, I think would be really cool. Being able to sense people around corners. I always enjoy playing open world games with a very kind of stealth play style. So I'm hoping that there are things in the game that will allow me to say, sneak up on people and then just like know where everybody is in a room, so I can just bust through the door and just like stab this guy in the face and zip over to this guy and like, punch him in the gut and then blow his head off. And, that general better awareness of the environment than your enemy has is kind of a really cool sense. So vision and hearing types of augments, I think, might be what I go to first. Great question. Know if PlayStation is going to censor not only in Japan. I haven't heard anything about the PlayStation censoring. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything specifically, but I know that PlayStation does tend to censor their games in Japan a lot, especially with nudity. That's just a thing that they're very particular culturally wise. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that they're going to have to deal with limitations, just like China. China's going to have a lot of probably iconography that they're going to have to get replaced for their version, just to make sure that it passes the restrictions that China has on a lot of their games and game companies. So as far as I know, most countries will probably get the same version and with very little censorship, just because of where it's coming from and what they're planning with this game. It's clear that they want to make this game as visceral and as I can't think of the right word for it, but they want to make sure that you experience everything the way that they're intending it. So I'm sure it'll probably be just fine if you're looking for all the gore, guts, and glorification that you want from this game.
Gore, guts, and glorification. That should be the name of this episode. All right, guys. I think that does it for this episode of the Cyberpunk Lorecast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in live. Logan and I love hanging out with you guys every Saturday night. This is one of the highlights of our week, to get to just nerd out about this really cool stuff that we're super excited about with our friends on the internet. So thank you for being there. I know a number of you guys by name. You are in the Discord server. If you aren't in the Discord server, jumping in, sharing fun stuff about the games that you've been playing, news and all sorts of things, then definitely go check out the Robots Radio Discord. There's a link in the show notes underneath the video, and we'd love to hang out with you guys. Just come hang out with us. And Logan and I both stream. Logan, how can people tune into what you're doing, both on stream and your other shows?
If people want to get a hold of me, which they have, so thank you for those that have, you can always reach me on twitch.tv/CAPT_LOGUN. That's just Capt Logan. On Twitter @CAPT_LOGUN. You can always listen to my Sea of Thieves podcast, Keelhauled. It's easy. In fact, I just got the podcast on Amazon Music. So now if you have Amazon Prime, you can just search Sea of Thieves in any of your podcatchers and podcast, and you'll pop up with mine. Mine's going to be the probably the main one that you'll run into. So if you like Sea of Thieves, it's double gold, double reputation weekend right now. It's International Talk Like a Pirate Day today.
We should have done the whole show in pirate speech.
No.
What were we thinking?
That's we were thinking that would be ridiculous because this is the Cyberpunk podcast.
Oh, right,
we're gonna be talking about
Cyberpunks don't
all
talk
that other,
like pirates, unless maybe they do.
They might. They could. Maybe we could make that a thing. Can we make that a thing?
You could role play your character that way if you wanted.
Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe first character, I'm going to be a Voodoo Boy who's a pirate.
A Voodoo pirate.
And
Pirate Boy.
On Pacifica. I like it. We're going to have a pirate gang.
Voodoo pirate gang. Sweet.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the ways you can get a hold of me. And I just have to say, you guys in chat are awesome. Everyone that's listening, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for listening. We're just as excited for Cyberpunk as you guys are, but yeah, I'm thankful for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And we have another comment. Have we played the demo? We haven't played the demo. Neither of us have gotten the early build of the game. We're hoping at some point, maybe somebody will hand us a little, hey, check this out, preview build or something like that to take a look. Or if any of you are listening and you are part of CD Projekt Red and you would like us to do a review when it comes out or something like that, we would love to do that as well. You know how to get a hold of us, robotsradio.net for all our stuff. I stream regularly on Twitch at twitch.tv/robotsradio, so I would love for you guys to hang out with me. I'm going to be trying to stream every night that I possibly can. I've got shows many of the nights, and the nights that I don't have shows, when I can, I will be streaming. So come jump in games with me, and definitely when this game comes out, I will be streaming it. I will be doing playthroughs, and I will definitely want to hang out with you guys as I do so we can experience this together. So thank you for being there. I also do a number of other shows on the Robots Radio Network and run the network. Check out the other shows, robotsradio.net. If it has Lorecast in the name, chances are it's probably mine. There's not 100% chance, but if it's Fallout Lorecast, Elder Scrolls Lorecast, D&D Lorecast, or the Cyberpunk Lorecast, those are mine. If you like those shows, go listen to those too. All right. Thank you for being here. And we're going to end the episode. You guys stay safe in Night City, and we will see you next time. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in to the Cyberpunk Lorecast. This show is a part of the Robots Radio Network, smart podcasts for interesting people. If you'd like to help support the show, please tell a friend and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. If you'd like to get in contact, please send an email to cyberpunklorecast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @cyberpunklore. Also, join the community on the Robots Radio Discord. The link is in the show notes. The music on the show was written and performed by The Midnight and was used with their permission. Go check them out at themidnightofficial.com. Until next time, stay safe in Night City. We'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.